To open session, the board would like to remind the public that this meeting is being audio and video recorded. It is also available via live stream for the public through links found on the front page of the RUSD website. We would also like to remind everyone to please enter and exit through the lobby. Trustee Counter, will you please read action taken by the board in closed session?
Sure. In closed session, the board voted to release one classified employee from their position pursuant to Education Code 45113. Second one. In closed session, the board moved to approve the terms of a settlement agreement of the Office of Administrative Hearing, OAH case number 2024010481, and to authorize the superintendent to execute the agreement on behalf of the district.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, seeing as we have no employee organization reports tonight, we will move on to item 6.1, comments from board and superintendent. Trustees, do you have board comments you'd like to share this evening? Okay,
Sure, I want to share really quick. I'm so glad that the painting is it done, Craig, all the way? In progress, 3/4 of the way done. It looks amazing, so excited for that. All right, awesome. Thank you for your work.
I will say congratulations to a few of our athletes out there. So all Metro softball players Maya Flint and Sid Baker from Whitney and Rocklin, and baseball player Jax Jimin.
Superintendent Stock?
Just we had a summer school open. We have 900 students approximately engaged in summer school. That's about 400 at Whitney High School from all of our high schools. And then we have about 500 elementary students in our elementary summer school, our extended year ELOP program, and also in our extended year program for our special education students. And so while many people may take the summer off, we have many educators, many students that are still in getting learning, and we deeply appreciate all of those that are continuing to serve our students during the summer, including our grounds and maintenance and others, as you just heard, painting going on, carpeting, all kinds of projects to get our schools in shape for the coming school year. And just a reminder to anyone that may be listening, registration's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, online. We also have a staff here to assist in the district office to any families that need one-on-one assistance while our school offices are closed for the summer. So if you know someone that should be in school, please tell them to come in and register now. It really helps us plan and make sure we have your seat ready for you.
Great. Thank you, Superintendent Stock.
If I can, President Setoff, I also was informed that we have one of our high school students from Whitney High School, former Springview and Sierra Elementary student that's here working on a scouting badge and eventual Eagle Scout. And so we just want to welcome him and his mother.
Well, hopefully it's not too painful of a meeting for you. Welcome to the room. Okay, we'll now move on to the consent calendar. Item 7.1, all matters listed under the consent calendar are to be considered routine and will be enacted by one motion followed by a roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the Board of Trustees requests specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. Any items removed will be voted upon following the motion to approve the consent calendar. Do any trustees wish to remove an item from the consent calendar for separate discussion?
7.2, please.
I don't need to remove it as well. It's already removed.
No.
So we're good.
Great. Okay. Trustees Hupp and Sutherland request to remove consent item 7.2 for separate discussion and action. Is there a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda item?
So moved.
Second.
First by Trustee Price, second by Trustee Counter. Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Julie Hupp, Yes. Rochelle Price,
Yes?
Derek Counter,
Yes.
Michelle Sutherland,
Yes.
Tiffany Sadoff.
Yes, motion passes. Okay, we will now bring back forward consent item 7.2, RUSD board meeting minutes for separate action. Is there a motion to approve consent item 7.2?
So moved.
Second.
First by trustee Counter, second by trustee Price. Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Julie Hupp,
Abstain.
Rochelle Price,
Yes?
Derek Counter,
Yes.
Michelle Sutherland,
Abstain.
Tiffany Sadoff.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move to our action items portion of the evening. Item 8.1, action on resolution 232446, approving tax reports for fiscal year 2024-25 and levying and apportioning the special tax for fiscal year 2024-25 for Community Facilities District Number 1, Community Facilities District Number 2, and Community Facilities District Number 3. Jennifer Stollerbert, Deputy Superintendent Business and Operations, welcome to the podium.
Thank you. Good evening, President Satoff, board members, Superintendent Stock. Tonight, we're asking you to take action on this resolution approving our tax reports. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. I know that this is a standard report that we look at. I appreciate you bringing it forward tonight for action. Seeing no comments or questions, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay. First by trustee Hupp, second by trustee Sutherland. Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Julie Hupp,
Yes.
Rochelle Price,
Yes?
Derek Counter,
Yes.
Michelle Sutherland,
Yes.
Tiffany Sadoff.
Yes, motion passes. Okay, we'll now move to item 8.2, action on RUSD 2024-25 Local Control and Accountability Plan. Hannah Anderson, Director of Innovation and School Programs, will present this evening. Welcome.
Good evening, President Sadoff, trustees, Superintendent Stock. Thank you for having me here tonight to share about the 2024-25 LCAP. We were here, our education staff were here on June 12th, 2024 to present the LCAP for public hearing. This draft combines the budget overview for parents, LCAP annual update for 23-24, the 24-25 LCAP, expenditure tables, and metrics at a glance. Since this time, no substantive changes have been made. Tonight, I will briefly share information with trustees about the 2024-25 LCAP, including themes, a budget summary, local indicators overview, actions and services, and increased and improved services for our unduplicated students. We've had the opportunity to engage with staff, students, parents, trustees, many different advisory groups in the creation and development of the 2024-25 LCAP. As I am each year, I am thrilled to have had the opportunity to work with so many members of our school community and community at large in the development of this plan. I truly do believe that this plan is a reflection of what works very well in our school district and what students, staff, and our parents and guardians want to see in terms of improvements in our district. I'm excited to share this again with you this evening and more so have the opportunity to work alongside our staff and parents in the implementation of this plan. Overarching themes in the plan are very similar to what they have been in the last three-year plan. We are looking to continue our work in terms of math achievement and looking for growth there. Ongoing themes also included social, emotional, and behavioral supports and services. Also a focused approach with cohesion and communication, both with staff about the plan as well as with the community and all of the services and supports that are available within our schools and that are called out in our LCAP. We also have a theme related to student connectedness and school culture. And the mid-year update, as well as the April update, I was able to share with trustees about that connectedness theme and the importance it is to students to have adults support students in the way that they connect with each other and ensure that students have opportunities both within the school day and outside of the school day to connect with not only students from their peer group, but also the opportunity to connect to students that they might not otherwise interact with. Some of this work happens naturally inside of a learning environment. For example, in the math improvement work we're doing with building thinking classrooms, to have those randomized student groupings and students getting the opportunity to share in their learning alongside peers. Students are also looking for this to happen as part of embedded school culture. So getting to know other students that are involved in clubs, getting to know other students that are involved in sports teams, all of those enriching opportunities, but making sure that staff facilitate the connectivity between students. In our LCAP, the budget expenditure tables that are in the end, the last portion of the LCAP, you can see a budget summary. This budget summary was added in the last 3-year cycle of the LCAP. It gives the community an opportunity to see how we're spending our dollars aligned to every action within the LCAP, and then which ones are specifically contributing towards the increased and improved services of our socioeconomic disadvantaged students, including our students living in homelessness, our foster youth students, and our English learner students. So our supplemental revenues that we anticipate for the coming year are a little over $5.7 million. And I want to remind that these supplemental revenues are driven because of the number of students we have in the district that are socioeconomic disadvantaged, including students living in homelessness, English learners, and foster youth. When you see the term unduplicated students in our LCAP, those are the student groups that we're referencing. Through these students' families filling out the free reduced meal application, or in the fall, it's an education benefits form, it helps direct tax dollars to our district in the form of supplemental revenues. And so these dollars represent that we have about 24% of our school community, our students, that are identified in one of those 3 student groups. And because of that, our district receives additional dollars above the LCFF base dollars in the form of supplemental revenues. So we anticipate about, again, $5.7 million. And those funds are intended to be served to increase and improve services for those particular student groups. And we need to write to those in the LCAP and explain how we're going to serve students with those funds. We also have carryover funds. So those were funds that weren't expended this past year and then are budgeted at the adopted budget and are included in this year's LCAP. So about $450,000 were carryover funds from the 23-24 school year, and we will carry those into next school year. And I want to mention that about half of those carryover funds, we actually were allocated because our percentage of those students grew this year. So in November, we certify our data, and we grew by a few percent over the prior year in terms of the students that were qualified. And therefore, that drove more revenue into our school district that we hadn't planned for at the last adopted budget. So instead of making new plans in the middle of the year, we reserve those funds in order to budget them here at this adopted budget cycle and increase our opportunity to keep around many of the great supports that we've had in our schools that are also coupled with our learning recovery funds. So very intentionally, about half of those carryover funds are here. The other half is because there was potentially an action or service that came in at a lesser expenditure rate or wasn't able to happen for whatever reason.
Can I ask a question on that? Is there a
Yes.
legal amount that can be carried over?
There is not,
There's
as
not a
long
limit?
as it has to remain with and be spent in the same manner as your other supplemental funds.
Okay.
And that was a change in law that occurred a few years ago. The supplemental funds must remain supplemental funds. You can't roll them back and now make them unrestricted funds. And they must be adopted or they must be budgeted for at your at your adopted budget and planned for in your LCAP.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, the revenue for this year plus our anticipated carryover, there is just about $6.2 million. And that $6.2 million are all supplemental funds, and they are all going to increase and improve services for unduplicated students, and they are listed in the expenditure section of the LCAP and aligned to each goal. So this is how the breakdown is by goal area. So you can see the allocation for each goal area. We do have other funds, many other funds that are also allocated. We try to allocate as many of our local and federal and grant funds within our LCAP as possible. And so when you go to look at actually how much we're investing in each goal, you'll see a lot more than is listed here. This is just the supplemental funds that are included by goal area. Our LCAP goals have remained unchanged since they were shared with trustees in February. First goal, looking at math improvement. Second, behavioral, mental health, and social emotional supports. And then the third goal, focused on maintaining and enhancing programs with those specific 3 areas that we're looking to make continuous improvement in. The area of early literacy to influence our primary grade students and their achievement in English language arts, our attendance improvement work, and then serving the unique learning needs of students, which include our English learner students and our students with disabilities.
Those, real quick, if you can go back.
Yes.
Those, we're pretty consistent on those goals for the past handful of years, right? So for anybody outside, it's not like these are brand new. I'm not saying that we don't just copy and paste, but we keep the same strategy moving forward that we have for a while, right?
Yes, these goals have been very similar to the goals that we were serving in the last 3 years, with the exception of Goal 2 now includes specific call out to mental health services that were that have been shared as a need with our community and trustees, as well as addresses the student identified theme of student connectedness. So focuses that goal more on we're implementing all of these supports for students, also looking to connect students with each other in a strategic way in order to develop healthy, respectful, self-aware, resilient, high-functioning individuals. And then Goal 3 has remained unchanged with the exception of instead of adding new goal areas for each of those 3 items, which it's hard to focus on 6 goals at one time. But the intention is to say we have a lot of items inside of Goal 3 that we are looking to maintain as a district. We're always monitoring, and then we need to find areas, or we do find areas, we don't need to. We find areas on occasion where we say, we need to do a little differently in this area, or we want to make continuous improvement in this area. And so we will learn and adapt as an organization by potentially shifting what Goal 3 says over the course of the next 3 years. We may say we have ongoing work to do in these 3 areas we're calling out. Next year we might say we've arrived at where we hope to be in terms of attendance. We could drop that out of our goal, and then we could add something else in if we so choose. The next 2 slides show a little bit more breakdown in terms of how those supplemental only funds, so again, just the funds related to increasing and improving services, are budgeted within the LCAP. Those expenditure tables show, again, line by action, all of the different funding sources. So you can see how many federal funds do we do by action, how many state funds do we allocate by action, and so forth in those expenditure tables. To call just attention to a few areas, you can see on Goal 2, Tier 1, social, emotional, behavioral supports including, and so some of the changes within Goal 2 address that all of the Tier 1 services, whether you're in elementary, middle, or high school, are all together inside of one action, and the supplemental investment in that action is $265,000. So if there are any additional questions, we can look to the expenditure tables to identify all the specifics in those, budget areas. And then in Goal 3, you see a large allocation of funding in a few areas. One of them is the third down on Goal 3, which is our entire investment in our English learner services population. We receive, again, these supplemental dollars to serve our English learners from the federal government. Next year will be our largest allocation in RUSD's history, I believe, but recent history for sure. We'll receive about $110,000 from the federal government to serve our English learners. But from the state government, we receive these supplemental dollars, and we will invest as a district $1.4 million in serving the unique learning needs of our English learner students, including our newcomer population, so students that are new to the country within the last year, as we've seen an increase in that student population. The other large amount there is that RUSD is fortunate to continue providing transportation services to students, so any student that has completed the free or reduced meal application and qualifies for a free or reduced meal also can qualify for free or reduced busing services, and those services are provided through supplemental expenditures. That dollar amount is the highest that it's ever been, which means ridership is up, and families are taking advantage of that service to make sure their students are at school and at school on time, which we know will benefit students' learning. Increase in improved services, so these are for those unduplicated students. We've reviewed these over the last number of months, so just to call out a couple, we make sure that these unduplicated student groups are prioritized in terms of their enrollment in all of our learning recovery programs, credit recovery programs, everyday math programs. And what we mean by priority enrollment, you see that language in the LCAP, is that these students are scheduled first. Their needs are accounted for first, and the remainder of these sections are filled with students who also need this service. But these students' needs are, these students' student group are generating the funds, these supplemental funds that is purchasing this service, and so therefore the way we show that this is increasing or improving services is that they get these courses first. And our program specialist of curriculum and instruction, Amanda Bannister, works with all of our counselors at the secondary level to ensure this is happening. And then we work directly with our principals at the elementary school to make sure this is happening. So with that, after action tonight on our LCAP, we will submit it tomorrow to the Placer County Office of Education for approval. They have already gotten an opportunity to take a look and given their feedback. Again, no substantive changes since the last meeting, which is very exciting. I appreciate that very much. We will also communicate our plan with Rocklin Unified Families and staff and provide feedback to our advisory committees on areas of input that we may additionally receive tonight, as well as we will continue our implementation, monitor our outcome data, and determine impact, and report updates to trustees regularly over the course of the next year. So at this time, I am here to answer any questions and request action on the adoption of the 24-25 RUSD LCAP.
Great. Thank you for your work on this. I appreciate you bringing it back, and I really appreciate that we were able to really look at this as an info item before, so we were really able to talk, have a good, robust conversation, and love now that it's brought back as an action item. Trustees, any comments or questions this evening? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to first just appreciate you for the great work that you have done on this. I appreciate the focus of clarifying many of these areas, specifying what services that we are looking at providing and how those dollars are being allocated. So thank you for that. With that, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? First by Trustee Price. Second by Trustee Hupp. But that's okay. We can all vote in just a second because, Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Julie Hupp,
Yes.
Rochelle Price.
Yes.
Derek Counter.
Yes.
Michelle Sutherland.
Yes.
Tiffany Sadoff.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. And thank you again to you and your entire team for all of the work. Much appreciated. Okay. At this time, we will go ahead and now move on to item 8.3, action on 2024-25 budget and annual certification for workers' compensation claims. Jennifer Stolliber, we welcome you back to the podium.
And thank you for having me back again. Okay. So I brought back the presentation from the last board meeting. I'm going to kind of quickly move through it, but stop me if you have questions on any of the slides, since several of you, I think we're out of town and didn't make that board meetings. I also provided a narrative with the budget package, so that answered a lot of the more detailed questions, but feel free to ask additional questions as follow-up. There have been no changes since I presented this on the 12th. So I'm just going to quickly go do a light overview on all of these slides because this has our pertinent information. So this is our comparison of the 24-25 adopted to the estimated actuals. And you can see we're projecting a decrease in some revenues. We went through the explanation of that at the last meeting. There were some pieces tied to LCFF. And even though our ADA has increased because we were on the prior 3-year funding, we actually are seeing a little bit of a decrease because we had some higher years that are dropping out, and we've actually increased enough that we're going to be funded on current year in our 24-25. So that's good news, and as long as we keep having that positive trend, we may see additional revenues as we move into next year and start looking at our ADA. So fingers crossed. This is just the breakdown, and you can see the majority of our revenues come from our local control funding formula, almost 80%, and those are the funds that come through the state, the Education Protection Act, property taxes. I feel like there's a third category, but just those two. Expenditures, our comparison over 24-25 to 23-24, you can show we have a little bit of a decrease projected, and that's because we had some one-time expenditures related to our bus grants that have been removed, and those were also removed from revenues. And then this is a breakdown of our expenditures, and you can see that 84.44% of all expenditures are related to salary and benefits. And then I think I shared last time that in addition to that, 3% of our overall budget are also in utilities. So really that leaves 12.56% of our total budget that is allocated to other expenditure types. And this is a summary of our fund balance. It shows some of the categories that are components of our ending fund balance. We are well above the reserve for economic uncertainty, and we have a very healthy fund balance. This slide, we go into the details of those components. So we have commitments, and those we bring to the board with as recommendations for committing. The board can make those decisions, but we would not actually spend those funds in that manner unless we brought it back to the board again for approval. And then we also have assigned funds, which are not as committed as the committed funds, but they typically are like in carryover for departments or categorical funds. Here's our MYP, which looks significantly better than it did at second interim. We made some efforts to look at where we can have some ongoing reductions, and we worked under direction of the board to keep it away from the classroom, so it did not impact staff or classroom, but we really looked at some things that were maybe duplicative, such as software, where we did some restructures and reorganized some departments and had some savings. Looking at other small budgets that don't really impact the classroom, and we were able to come up with about $500,000 ongoing. So you see that move through each budget year. That's why we're seeing a better outlook. We also saw that growth in our revenues related to the better ADA, and even though we left it flat to be conservative, because our demographic report actually shows that we're going to have slight reductions in our enrollment, we believe that we're going to stay flat because of our TK numbers, which are really coming through. We've actually had to add a TK class since our initial staffing projections because of enrollment numbers being so high, which is great news. And hopefully we'll see that move through the system. And in future years, we're going to see more growth than is currently projected. So these numbers look great now, but I really feel that we can see even better numbers when we come back at the interim. If we do see that growth in enrollment, and then we also see growth in our ADA. And these are the planning factors we use. We've shared before that we typically get our planning factors from School Services of California, Legislative Analyst's Office, Department of Finance, and then some of our assumptions as well. So you can see in the funded ADA, we left it flat in all years at the $11,105, but if you saw our demographic study, it actually shows that we're going to dip a little. Again, based on the trend we had this year, which was originally projected a dip, and we grew by just under 180 students, we feel really confident in leaving it flat. And then if the numbers get better, we'll bring that back at first or second interim. These are some of our other funds, and we have a couple that look like they have a deficit, but that's really because those funds are funds that have no revenue coming into them. So the only revenue right now for those funds are interest earnings that happen on an annual basis, but we do still have some expenditures that occur out of those funds. And this has a little bit of an update because our next steps, we were no longer waiting for the final budget. It has come out, but there's still some negotiation, and we know there's going to be some trailer bill language. So we are keeping an eye out for that. We have the school finance conference that'll occur July 18th that we will be attending. And then we're going to continue to work on building efficiencies and preparing to work as a system to address any budget shortfalls. And then I added this slide to thank my fiscal services team. They did a great job. Any questions?
I was going to say this looked also very familiar because you were able to really present on this when we saw it as an info item, and I really appreciated that, where we were able to ask some detailed questions and talk about it. Although I will say now there has been an amendment, this last slide that says thank you. I really appreciate that amendment. All joking aside, I really appreciate your hard work. Are there any questions from the board, comments? Then I would like to just echo that slide and say thank you to the entire team that's here tonight. But you guys have all done incredible work on this. And I really appreciate how you make it so clear for the board. These are the assumptions I'm using. This is how I'm building the budget. This is what I expect may change, may not change. Even just the attachment. I know I got to speak to this last time, but I just want to, for anybody that's only listening this evening and didn't see the info item, you do such a thorough job on the attachments to explain, here's why I'm building this out. Here's what these numbers mean. I want everybody, our board, our parents to understand these numbers, our staff. So I really appreciate that transparency. I think that's important for our district. And I also really appreciate a good, beautiful, clean budget. So thank you for the work that you've done, especially in spite of some concerns statewide. You're really saying, hey, here's what we're looking at this year, and then here's also what we're looking at the next 2 years. And so thank you for your hard work. Also, the savings that you've done, some of the reorganization, saying, hey, are there areas that we can, at the district office, at the district level, far away from the classroom, maybe reorganize, make some changes so we can see that benefit district-wide. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I can't take credit for that by myself. It was all of us working together as a team, and we even brought in labor partners and, picked their brains for ideas, and there was a lot of hard work that went into that.
Great. Well, thank you to everybody that was involved in that process. Seeing no comment, no questions, I will go ahead and ask, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
First by Trustee Counter, second by Trustee Hupp. Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Julie Hupp,
Yes.
Rochelle Price,
Yes.
Derek Counter,
Yes.
Michelle Sutherland,
Yes.
Tiffany Sadoff.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you again for your hard work. Okay, we'll now move on to, we can clap. That was incredible work. Thank you again. We'll now move on to item 9.1, public comment. Seeing no public comment cards, we will go ahead and move to item 10.1, pending agenda items. Trustees, colleagues, do you have any pending agenda items?
Nope.
Okay, seeing none, we will now adjourn to closed session.